I think that is so forming, to be in a position where it's like, God, you've called me to something. I don't fully understand it yet, but I know what you're doing is good, and just trusting him in that. Hey guys, I'm super excited. Today is the first episode of That Christian Business Podcast. And the whole point of this podcast is to equip, encourage, and entertain Christian entrepreneurs and business owners to be a safe place for you to learn, to grow, and to hopefully have fun if you're in the car, if you're driving. Ultimately, my goal is for this to be once a week, but I think in these early stages, we're going to do every other week and bring on some great co-hosts. And this week we have a guest co-host, Blake Anderson, which I'm so excited to bring him on. I got to meet him about probably 8 months into living in North Carolina. A bunch of Christian entrepreneurs, business owners, men wanting to grow closer to the Lord meet up in Raleigh every Friday. And I've been able to get to know him and learn about what he's doing. He's got his own podcast. He's got multiple businesses. And so today we're going to talk about some things about him, but also talk about some larger topics about entrepreneurship, about your faith, and how do you put Jesus truly at the center of all things in your life. So yeah, today we have Blake. Blake is a real estate mogul. He's a real estate developer.
Yeah.
He's got his hands in a bunch of different things. So tell me a little bit about your current career, your business, and what got you into it.
Yeah. Well, first, honored to be here for number one. Loved our conversations. So I'm in the residential real estate development business. So single family, multifamily, all things in between around the Raleigh, North Carolina area. And got here the honest way, I guess, through job sites and construction. So got a bachelor's degree in economics. And when I graduated in the early 2000s, didn't want to get in an office, didn't know where to go. My wife's family were like Renaissance men, and I felt like if I was going to be able to be accepted there, I better learn a trade and learn how to do something.
Yeah.
It's because I'm not from a building family, so I got a job on job sites. Was a carpenter, built houses like, just as a carpenter, making $10 an hour. And then in 2007, became an entrepreneur, started my own business, and have been an entrepreneur since I was 25, mainly in the construction and real estate space. So that's kind of, there's some different iterations and different seasons of my life. 6 years ago, got connected with my now business partner, who was a former pastor, real estate investor, didn't have a construction background, wanted to take his investing operation to the next level, and we partnered up. And it's grown quite a bit from he and an admin to now we have 15 people. And I think first year, maybe we did a few $100,000 in construction revenue, and now we'll do 15 plus million. So quite a bit of growth in 6 years. And it was really cool for me is having a first career in construction, and then now getting to learn and flourish in the real estate development side.
So which side do you enjoy more?
There's obviously a lot more potential, I feel like, on the development side.
Yeah.
It's real estate development's really creative, which I really like. You're able to bring a lot of different skill sets to the table. You can structure deals in so many different ways. Yeah. It's not like you feel like you're on your own and you don't have to form an LLC for everything. Like, people can get involved in lots of different ways. So I love the creativity of development. It's full of problems to solve at higher levels, which I appreciate. There's better money than $10 an hour. I would say when I was coming up as a carpenter and just my first business, just doing home renovations, like that was super fun too. We didn't have kids. Our needs were really little. I was learning something new, but that kind of, a business without scale starts to get not fun really quick. And that's where that was. And there's a whole lot more room for scale on the development side.
Yeah. Unpack that a little bit. You said a business without scale is not that fun. So why don't you find that fun?
In order for business to work, right, you've either got to have scale, you've either got to have volume, or you've got to have margin.
Sure.
Right? And in the home renovation world, I had a low volume, high margin business, and there was almost not enough margin that you could charge to make real money because the customizations kept volume and scale really small. There's just, you can't scale a complex system, right? And home renovations is a very complex transaction, you know? And so you just grow as you might. It's just, it was hard to do. And so you stayed small whether you wanted to or not. And it was just too complex to try to scale. Whereas in real estate development and new construction, so I'm a builder still, even as a real estate developer, and we build a lot of things. There's scalability through predictability, right? And it just, you solve different problems. And when you scale, you're able to take some of the pressure off of your shoulders and bring on people that have expertise that you don't. So like when you're a small business, it's super fun. And if you're able to carve out your niche, that's great. But when there's low scale, you end up having to do everything, whether you're good at it or not, right? And you end up spending a lot of your time doing things that frustrate you just because they have to get done, rather than doing the things that make you come alive. And scale, at least for me, has empowered me to delegate the things that frustrate me, make room at the table for other people who love to do that, and allow me to just continue to work further and further into like my core genius. And that's fun. Yeah.
And so you are spending more and more time there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, you know, when I started with my partner, at that point, it was he and I and an admin. And so we were talking because we had some new hires come on at our team meeting this week. And we were asked to describe like what our role was in the company. And I basically told him like, I've held every role, you know, because I had to hire myself out of all, you know, anytime you grow a business, you're hiring away your work. And so now the goal is, if you're going to hire and build the organization below you, you're delegating those things that you're not great at and that frustrate you, so you can spend more time in what you do love. And hey, with every new level, there's still going to be things that you are new and you encounter and you don't love. But the goal is to work more into your genius. And that's your high leverage point. You know, when you get to spend your time and you're a genius, that's and you can spend more high leverage activities. Like you do so much more for your business with you doing your particular thing than you trying to do something else.
Yeah. So when you went from your first business in the carpentry side to this, one of the things I noticed when I tried to scale my video production company is, as I brought in more revenue, a lot of times I wasn't bringing in much more personal income. So you moved on the side of being able to not just do work that frustrates you, but do work that you excel in. How has it impacted you financially? Have you seen a big increase in what you can take home as a family, or are you just seeing more of an increase in the revenue of the company?
Yeah, both. I mean, there's no way around that challenge of, you know, growth brings more revenue, but growth also brings more expenses. Yeah. You know, and there's a whole lot you don't know until you get into each new level. And so every new level has got a learning curve and an adjustment period. So you're going to experience that. But I remember, like, my first business, try as I might, I couldn't make more than about $60,000 a year. Now, some of that was my limitation as an entrepreneur. Sure. And probably not feeling comfortable with what I could charge, and also just, you know, I was pretty young. I mean, people were trusting me with some significant home projects, like $500,000 home project to a kid that was 30 years old, right? When my competitors had been doing this for 30 years, longer than I had been alive, right? So there was that going for me. But I was trying to do too much on my own. And what I've found with the scale, like, bring on the right people, and that's the critical point, right? The right people multiply your business. You know, they're not just like freeing up some of your time, like they're bringing something you don't have, and so the pie gets bigger. And I think in the first business, I'd bring on more people, and I was still sharing the pie with them, right? And so a little bit more revenue, but I didn't know how to like make the pie bigger. And now, just, you know, this time, because when I started with my partner, to be honest with you, it was pretty low. And when you take that risk when you start a new business, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
But we were able to continue to make the pie bigger. And so as the revenue came, the income has expanded as well. And the cool thing about real estate is, you know, it has an asset component built into it. Yeah. And so I get to create assets with my day-to-day income rather than having to store away excess income to hopefully create assets later. Right.
Yeah.
So
That's a unique way to look at it. And
yeah, because a lot of people are making
benefit.
a lot of money, and they're then taking that money to then go invest with me to create assets, and that's great, But the other way is when you're in an asset-based business, your day-to-day is creating assets, and so now it's about structuring that relationship so that your work creates your asset base.
Yeah.
Now, assets don't normally give you, that they don't give you the income that you need. So there's active and there's passive, right? And even my assets aren't overly passive because we're in growth phase. So that's a whole nother story. But what's been fun is coupling the active income with the asset creation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So for someone out there listening today who's been curious about the development side, the real estate side, without giving a huge explanation of all the steps to do that, like, what's a great place to start if they're interested in this career?
I had this conversation with a guy from church literally 2 weeks ago who knew what we were up to, and he's like, I think I want to do some real estate stuff. And you framed it right. You shouldn't get into all the intricacies of it. You start with who are you and what do you bring to the table? Because in a really simple way, real estate, there's 3 pieces to a deal. There's the deal, there's the money, and then there's the sweat. And you only have to have one of them. Mm-hmm. And so if you've got the money, then you go find someone with the sweat. If you've got the deal, then you can go find someone with the money. And maybe you have none of that. Like my partner told me when I first got into on the real estate development side, there's about 100 microtransactions that make up one large real estate transaction. And you don't have to do all of those. Yeah. You find the one thing that you're really good at, and then you go find other people in your market who are already doing the rest, and you're part of the deal.
Mm. So for someone like, I think of myself back, just graduated college, trying to figure out what I want to do. I get the itch like, that field seems interesting, but I don't have any background. Mm-hmm. Like, how would I even know what am I good at in one of these fields?
Well, so I'm a big proponent of personality tests. I mean, they're not the end all be all, but really you want to hone in on like what's your gift, because most gifts are transferable to other industries. We get this identity about our industry and I'm a builder. Well, it's not that I'm a builder, it's that my gift set, my skill set lend themselves well to this industry. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But I can also take those other places. And so whatever you've been able to be successful or found some movement in any industry, there's likely a need for that. Yeah. In real estate, right? And so then you try to figure out which steps of the process lend themselves well to this. Mm. And really, you may not know, so you go find some people like my friend from church who found me and said, hey, you're in real estate. How could I get in real estate? Yeah. You go find some people that are already doing it and ask them some questions. And here's the thing that we need to always remind ourselves. Most people that are successful at anything or doing anything meaningful, they want to help. And so you might think, well, who's going to take time to meet with me? I don't have anything to offer them or add. People want to help, man. Yeah. You know somebody who's doing at any level, and they'll help you. Like one of the largest real estate developers in this town is a guy named Jim Allen. I don't know if you've seen that name. Mm-mm. Okay, well, you'll see it now that you know it. He's everywhere, right? So Jim speaks to an investor conference, small, 50 people that I went to. And at the end of it, he said, hey, if I can help you in any way, you just let me know. Well, me, like everybody else, we never reached out to Jim because Jim would never take my call. Well, I had coffee with a guy who did, and he was a smaller builder than I was. And Jim brought him in. They spent 2 hours together. Wow. Because Jim just wanted to help people. And Jim made some phone calls. Here, I'm going to call my architect for you, and all this stuff. People want to help. So find someone already doing it, and they'll help you.
Love it. All right, so we're going to take a quick jump and turn to a little fun thing. So like I mentioned earlier, I want to have fun segments that just make us think about the silly, the fun parts of being a business owner, because it's a wild ride. So if you're anything like me, I have a very unique set of jobs and businesses that I've done, including starting at Legoland. So that's my first job, is running rides at Legoland.
All right, wait, hold on really quick. Where's Legoland? Is that California?
Yeah, so it's in Carlsbad, California, which is where I'm from.
Okay.
That city. And they had just opened right before I turned 16.
All right.
So I had some buddies go get a job there.
Is it a full-on theme park, or is it like a carnival rides or something?
It's full-on theme park.
Okay, all right.
But it's not like Disneyland where every ride has like pre-programmed audio recordings of telling you what to do. Like we actually had to say the spiel each time.
Oh, okay.
And so I would like try to do it in different accents. And
So you were like the tour guide of Legoland?
yeah,
All right.
I would say, "Welcome to the Dragon," which was one of our rides. And that job, I probably got cussed out in 5 to 10 languages. For everyone, you had to tell they're not tall enough to ride the ride. The parents would just lay into you.
Right.
Because
We
it was
came all this
expensive.
way.
Yeah.
We paid all this money.
But I would love to know, there's 3 categories for this game.
Okay.
Thinking back of the jobs you've had. First, what is the job that if you didn't have to worry about money, you would do just for fun, just because you enjoy it the most? And it could be what you're doing now.
Okay.
The second is, what is the worst job that you had and that you would never do again? And the final one, since this is a faith-centric podcast, is what is a job that you found formed you most spiritually? Like most grew you in your faith? So let's start with that fun one.
All right.
What would you do if you didn't have to worry about money? What's most fun for you?
Well, the most fun for me is when I feel like I'm living in my purpose. And so I kind of have this going with my personal podcast. Yeah. So it's about helping people through their spiritual journey, what I call their wilderness season, into stepping into purpose. And so I do that already for free. And I have a ball with it. As much time as I can spend to help those folks. So TikTok Live is just a great place to connect. And so anytime I have 30 minutes free or an hour, I'll jump on TikTok Live and 50 people from my community will jump on and start asking me questions. It's super life-giving to help people with that. So that's a blast. And I probably always do that whether it pays me or not.
Yeah.
And really the thing is, what makes it fun is it's rewarding to help someone who's struggling with something that you've overcome or you've been through, and 2, anytime that you can spend time in your gift, it's just life-giving.
So quick follow-up question. If you shifted your full focus to doing that, do you think that you would thrive as much as being forced, or not forced, but being in other businesses and other ventures that create more challenges for you to go through to even be able to speak into the community? Does that make sense?
Say it one other way. So
yeah. So essentially,
like if you
were doing fully that, do you think you would find as much joy in it as you do now?
Yeah, I don't know. I worry about that because I've heard people say they tried to make a job out of their passion and it made it not fun anymore. Yet at the same time, there's a quote, it's like, find what you love to do and you never work another day in your life. Yeah. So to be honest with you, like in the back of my mind, I wrestle with it because it started to really take off in a way I didn't expect. I just started helping people. I didn't ever think it would grow to anything.
Yeah.
And now there's a real demand on it and there's a joy to it. So that part of me, and there's like, people are longing for me to create some things that I haven't just had time because of other businesses. And it's really, really life-giving. And so part of me is like, what could be if I really took the time and invested in it. I don't think it would ever be my only business, but could be another one. And it might be one in the future,
True or false, it surprised you that you took off on TikTok in your 40s?
Yeah, true. Very surprising.
I remember when you shared that with me, I'm like, that's wild.
Yeah, because everybody's posted content online, and I'm one of the normal people who post, and you get a couple hundred views, and you get a few likes, and I'm not like Josh Oliver or my wife or someone who's posting their life on there. I'm pretty much an open book, but I don't assume that I'm all that interesting. Yeah. And so I've, earlier last year, just felt like God said, I want you to help them. And I didn't have much time, and TikTok's a short form platform. So I was like, okay, I'll just start giving principles and stories on TikTok. And I had posted before and nothing happened, and it just took off. And now they're like, those comments and questions all the time, and it's rewarding. It's cool.
Yeah. All right. So the next question. Yeah. So now we're going to think, what was your worst job and that you would never do again and why?
Okay. So the worst job was just I'll think of a project. Okay. there's two real jobs, is carpentry related jobs, and here's two of them. So I had one. I took a job with a buddy of mine after I'd shut my first business down. I'm kind of in my wilderness season, licking my wounds a little bit. I go work for a friend of mine who's got a rot repair company. So his construction company like repaired the outside of your houses. Well, I don't like heights, right? So my first day on the job with him, his crew just jumps on these 40-foot ladders. They're 3 stories up, yanking on the side of these houses. They're on the side of these ladders like this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I get on my ladder and I climb up to the top of my 20-foot ladder and I'm paralyzed. And I'm like, I can't do this. I get down and I call my buddy who's the owner of the business. I was like, Brian, I can't do it. If I got to be fired, I have to be fired, but I can't do it. And luckily he was like, no, it's fine. You can work on the ground. You send them the material they wanted. So that was horrible because I'm scared of heights. The other thing, really quick, it's worth telling. I had this project, this renovation project, and on an old historic home, and it had a very low crawl space, and crawl space is already not fun. And we crawled into the back of this crawl space and had to take this HVAC duct out of the floor, and it was full of about 6 dead rats.
That smells nice.
Right. All of this tiny little space with me and 2 other people, in the cold of winter. Right.
So you don't want to keep doing that?
No, I don't. Yeah, it's been years since I've been in a crawl space. So.
Oh, man.
Or to find snake skins in a crawl space.
Yeah.
Which isn't uncommon.
Yeah, I remember I probably have multiple jobs that I'm like, this is the worst that I wouldn't do again.
Uh-huh.
But I remember I did a summer of low voltage wiring for new construction homes primarily. And going to a construction site every day, climbing up in attics, pulling cable, really quickly made me realize that's not what I want to do. I probably want to finish my degree. Every day you'd come to the construction site and see a Gatorade bottle filled with urine that someone left from the night before.
Right.
And then someone would knock it over and it'd just smell horrible for the rest of the day. And I was like, I'm very grateful for the people doing this.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful to never do this again.
I kind of figure it almost like everyone should probably work on a construction site for at least a month or 2. To have some level of appreciation of how hard it is, how the heat is, and what other people do. And I almost kind of figure everyone should probably work fast food as well.
Fast food or server?
Oh, yeah. Did you work fast food?
I didn't work fast food. I worked at a California pizza kitchen.
All right.
As a waiter and bartender.
Yeah, I worked at Chili's and TGI Fridays.
And I think that's one of the more character building jobs. So we'll probably have a whole episode where we dive into that and why people should do it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go to the last one. So which of the jobs that you've done do you feel like was most character forming?
Yeah, the first business I started, for sure.
And what about it?
Well, I mean, you want a personal development program, go start your first business, right? Hopefully the second and the third go differently. Yeah. But the first is, and I know you've had multiple businesses. It's tough. I mean, there's so much you don't know.
Always.
And you're making mistake after mistake, and it hurts, and you have very little money to cover those mistakes, and you're doing all the jobs, because you don't have the money to hire people. And, I remember guys that worked for me, had to be up at the lumber yard to show up at beat them to the job site with the materials. And at 4:30 when they went home, I went to the office, because I didn't know how to bring on a team, and that was character forming. And then cash flow issues and payroll and creditors and, learning how to sell, learning how to sell. It was such an important thing that I had to learn in my first business. And that built my character, better more than anything. I mean, business is always building your character.
Sure.
Right. But that was like the formative experience for me.
Oh, yeah. And it increases that reliance on the Lord.
Oh, my gosh.
To this other level. I think one misconception people have about a career versus being a business owner, entrepreneur, is that a career is safe, which in reality,
at least it feels like it.
It's not safe. But you at least can count on until they fire you,
right? Yes,
or until you go somewhere else. This is how much money I get each month. Here's the taxes that go out. Whereas as a business owner, unless you plan it well, and that's one of the things that helped me maybe 5 or 6 years in is planning better so that I could give myself consistent income. But man, do you have to rely on the Lord and just like seek after him day in and day out.
How about you? Were your first business, was that really big a character forming thing for you, or had you already been through the gauntlet before you started?
I think that the restaurant was the most character building for me. And I'll spend another episode maybe diving deeper, but like, I graduated with my degree in materials engineering.
Okay.
I moved to Portland, Oregon, because I felt God had called me. I was a worship leader to plant this church in Portland with a pastor.
Okay.
And I was just sure that what that looked like, I was volunteering with that, is I moved there, immediately God's going to provide an engineering job so I can make $70K plus starting as a 23-year-old. And he's going to provide a wife right away. Like my fairy tale life is straight ahead. Like, Lord, I'm following you. This is what it looked like. And a month of not even being able to get an interview, I'm like, well, I don't have much savings, so I have to do something. So I showed up in a mall. They had a little kiosk for a California pizza kitchen that was going to be opening up. And I was like, all right, I'm from California. And I have a degree. Like, I can probably go straight to server and not have to do the bus boy, that whole thing, with a new restaurant. And so I'm come with like dress shirt, a tie, and not a single person is dressed up like going in for these interviews. Easily get the job. And I waited on this table, maybe 8 months in, of 10, 12 engineers, one who graduated from Cal Poly, where I went. And I just felt humiliated. Like this should be me. I shouldn't be on this side. And that was like God really first working on my identity related to work.
Oh, man.
And just showing me like work isn't your identity. And even like, I'd get pride in volunteering and doing worship, and be proud that I was doing it for free. Like, look at all that I'm doing. And so that season of having to rely on the Lord, which ended up moving into a season of doing church, the restaurant, and my first business, which was a photography business, really pushed my character. And I had to grow, and I had to rely on him, and I had to cast off these false identities that the world wanted to push on me. But man, pride is a continual struggle for me. And so those identity issues have continued to come up throughout career. And, getting to a point where I made the most I ever did a few years back in video production and my identity being there, to now God called us to this season of moving across the country, selling our home, taking equity out, and making as little money as I have in a decade. And having to wrestle with like, all right, Greg, you're putting your identity again in the income side. And so I get not necessarily embarrassed, but almost bashful in conversations, especially around people who are at the peak of their career. I'm in my 40s now. Like, from world standards, I should be at the peak or entering the peak earning years of my career. And I'm now making as low as I ever have. And so I think that is so forming, to be in a position where it's like, God, you've called me to something. I don't fully understand it yet, but I know what you're doing is good, and just trusting him in that. So there's been a lot of things that have formed, but I think that was kind of the start.
I mean, you want to get close to God, start a business. I know that my relationship with the Lord intensified, because where are you going to cleave to and clutch to, and then, you find he'll be there.
Because you hear the whispers every week, every day, depending on the season, every minute of, you're not good enough. Like, you're stupid for doing this business. What are you doing? And sometimes you have to recognize, like, there's passages in Proverbs that talk about being a fool chasing fantasies. So you have to reconcile that. But there are times when God's called you into something that's going to be hard.
Yes.
And you're not going to see the fruit for a while.
Correct.
And you have to continue to trust him.
Yeah, I mean, you will feel like a fool for a little while until it works.
Yep.
You know, but that's part of it.
And then you're going to feel like a hero.
Yeah.
And you're going to be on the pride side of it.
Yeah.
And realize, man, I need to reel back and just fall back in place with the Lord. And so let me transition from this into what your podcast is all about.
Cool.
Increase.
Yeah.
Which is all about these seasons of wilderness. And so, you know, the Israelites were in Egypt, and then they spent 40 years in the wilderness. And a lot of our life is in these seasons of being in the wilderness. And so, again, for this podcast, speaking to y'all who are listening, and I know I just threw out y'all. I'm starting to pick that up from San Diego into North Carolina. But yeah, well, I want to really dive into tough conversations because as a believer, it's easy to want things to be easy and to be comfortable.
Right.
But where we grow the most is outside of comfort.
Yeah.
And is often when God is pushing us.
It is.
And that happens a lot in these wilderness seasons. So tell me a little bit about why you even have a podcast about the wilderness, what your journey, you know, the condensed version has been, and why a wilderness season is important.
Yeah. So really quick to understand, you know, God wanted better for his people than being second-class citizens in Egypt. And he wants better for us as well. And Egypt is a place of wrong identity. You're identifying with something you're not meant for.
And what was that identity?
Yeah, the identity was being slave to Pharaoh, being a slave to a man. And so in a spiritual Egypt in our lives looks like fear of man. It looks like being a slave to people's opinions. And you're lacking because you need someone else to affirm you, not realizing like you have everything to be able to bless the world. And so it's not uncommon for God to want to free you of that because he's got a greater purpose for you. But first he's got to take you out of Egypt and then take Egypt out of you. And that is the undoing. And that's this wilderness season where the things that you did in Egypt just are not working anymore. And try as you might, they're not, because you are having a hard time reconciling what believing God for more, but doing what used to work. And now you're double-minded. It's not working. Right. And then in this time, he is breaking you down, not to punish you, but because he's ready to form you into this promised land, purposeful, you know, kingdom conqueror. But you need a new identity. I mean, it's really about upgrading identity from being second-class citizen who serves the powerful people to being someone who's powerful, who blesses those people, right? So, you know, you think about how long was the Israelites in Egypt?
40 years.
40 years, but really how long were they there? They were there until the generation who didn't believe died. There's not a time limit to your wilderness. It is about how long it takes for your unbelief, your old ways, your Egyptian thinking, your bad identity to die. And that is a very hard thing to go through because you literally do feel emotionally and spiritually like you're dying. You know? But it's where you really get set free. Because when you can die to self, but really what I'm saying is you're dying to this desperation that someone would affirm you. With a contract or with praise or a like on Facebook. When you die to that need, then now you're free. And now you're free to go look to see where can I create, where can I bless, where can I make an impact. And God's kingdom is increase follows impact, not the other way around. So that's the journey that God had me on. So it's you know, my first construction business, it had all my identity wrapped up. And man, it was where I went to get approval. I was super active in my community, but I was desperate for people to recognize me as someone who had something to offer. Right? And got to a place where I was working for high profile people in town and doing magazine quality work. And that's when he said that he wanted me to close my business down. And it took me a year to be obedient to that because I couldn't figure out how to stomach that. That would be the death of me.
Yeah.
It was my only income, wife, 2 kids, right? And so eventually I do, because it was like that someone was turning the tap off to the business. And it made no sense, because I'd made it through 2008, 2009. And as things were coming back, I should have leapfrogged up to another place.
Yeah.
Right. And that was when he was pulling it out of me, you know, pulling it out from underneath me. So I closed his business down, and I have, I went, a good chunk of years where I wasn't contracted anymore. I went a season of not working. I did some consulting and construction and also ministry work. It's still just being rewired. Income was really poor. I mean, I got a whole nother episode of stories of God's miraculous provision, but also how we greatly suffered because of my pride and, lack of humility, right? But all through that, God was forming my character. Yeah. To be ready to be someone that could make a difference, that could really not make it about me anymore. Yeah. Make it about use your business as a way to bless people, to help people. And when you do that, that's when the increase really follows you.
Yeah. So without going deep into it, like, what's the number one thing someone needs to be doing when they're in that wilderness season?
So the wilderness season is not a productive season. We men, and or entrepreneurs, unfortunately, we're so define ourselves on what we're producing, what we can show for ourselves. Right? And if you think about it, you can't take promised land seeds and plant them in the wilderness and get anything to grow. And that's an especially frustrating point when you're learning at church, do this and it will work, and you're trying and nothing's working, right? Because what's doing is you're being changed on the inside. So the wilderness is about becoming on the inside. So that's your job. You need to agree with what God is doing. And so it lasts a long time because we resist the work that He's doing in our heart. And the longer you resist, the longer it persists. Yeah. Right? And so when you just let go of what He's trying to pull from you, then you'll be free in a way that you think you're going to die, but really you're being set free. And then when you're free, now all of a sudden all things are possible. So when you find yourself in that wilderness season, it's not about being productive, right? Yeah. It's about being transformed on the inside, and you don't often know when you've become. I had a friend call the other day, and he had been going through his wilderness season, and he was in life insurance, and he used to do really well in life insurance, and he follows the Lord, and he has a season where nothing works. He couldn't sell a policy to save his life, and then all of a sudden he just felt like God was saying, I want you to sell life insurance again. And he started making calls, and people started buying. And he was like, "What? This is really new. What's going on?" I said, "Here's what happened. You didn't realize you've become the next version of yourself." Of course, they're responding because the transformation's already happened inside of you. Because when the transformation has taken root and has happened, you may not feel it, but the world outside responds. Yeah.
So tell me this, in the conversations we've had, handful of conversations, one thing that I always see confidence in you in is when you say, God has called me to X, Y, and Z. Yeah. That's something, I'm still wrestling with, discerning. And I think a lot of believers are, how do you practically hear God's voice and know when He's calling you or when it's something else? And so for you, practically, and sometimes God calls us in different ways, and so it's not prescriptive. I've read multiple books recently, and one of them talks about the idea of recipe theology. Like, we want to be able to read a recipe,
right? Just give me the formula.
And our faith then follows in suit, and that's not how God works. No. That's why a marriage relationship won't work off a recipe. But what advice or insights would you have on discerning and hearing God's voice?
I'll tell you how it worked for me. So, and this was in my entrepreneurial journey. Yeah. So it's 2009. My business is not going well. I had pushed both my father and my stepfather away from me. I was, going to do this on my own. Yeah. Right. So I'm pushed away the counsel and the mentorship I desperately needed. I'm not in a church. And I go to buy an insurance policy from an insurance agent. Yeah. There's a man named Joe Stone. And Joe was older than me, 20 years older than me probably. And Joe saw in me a man who desperately was needed a mentor, and I didn't know how to ask, right? And I wouldn't even, and he said, hey, why don't you walk the golf course with me on Saturdays? And so normally on Saturdays when I didn't have kids, I'd sleep till, 10, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And when Joe said, meet me at 6:30 on Saturday, I was there. And so I met Joe at 6:30 on Saturday. I walked the golf course with him, and then he introduced me to a group of older men who mentor me. Well, this group they exposed me to something I had never considered in my life, which was you can speak to God and God will speak to you, and you can hear his voice. Well, I didn't grow up in a church that ever taught me that was possible. So I was like, this is not something I'm used to. But these men who were at a place in their life that I was desperately trying to get to said I could do this. So who was I to argue with them? So I went home. And I bought a journal, and they said, journal, okay? And so to this day, here we are, 16 years later, this is a daily practice, and I've got probably 20 plus journals that I've still all have. And I take a journal, and so when I pray, when I'm able to quiet myself, I literally just write my conversation to God. There's something about writing that slows your mind down and kind of gets you calm. And I learned, because I was told, and so I would just journal a thought or question, and I would just sit and wait, and I would feel a prompt in my heart, and it was like a thought, but it wasn't like coming the way I'm thinking about talking to you, right? Yeah. And I would write it down. Well, this voice that was kind of like me, but hearing in my heart, would say to turn to a certain Bible verse. And at this point, I didn't know my Bible very well. So I'd turn to the Bible verse, and it was speaking to my situation. Over and over and over again, I would just listen to it and do it. And it kept leading me and teaching me the word, but teaching me about exactly what I was dealing with. And then it would tell me of things to do, like wisdom and general things. And when I would do it, it would work. And then I would hear this voice tell me of things to expect that would happen in my life. And they would happen. And so God started building this track record with me that I had never grown up with, to know how to calm myself down, to be able to receive and hear from him. And I just journal out, and I don't assume that everything that I write down is absolutely the word of the Lord. I'm not canonizing anything like that. I'm holding it loosely with my hands to be curious, because, our spirit and soul are closer than, flesh or bone and marrow. But it's been amazing, Greg, the things that God has spoke to me in this quiet time, in these journals, that as I've listened and heeded the advice, it has absolutely changed. And so I take this to everything that I do. And so then in this wilderness season, when I'm invited, so you meet God, and now he says, I got so much more from you, but you're going to have to leave your Egypt and follow me. He doesn't tell you there's a wilderness in the way. Right. But I go through this wilderness, and I thought I knew God. Holy moly. When you need him for like every meal you're going to eat and every dollar that you don't have, like you start to get you fine tune your antenna to his voice. Yeah. I love that. That's great practical advice. And it's been interesting for me. It was later in life when I even was introduced to the idea of asking prayer and trying to listen. And sometimes I feel like it's really fruitful, but it's odd. Like I almost have a fear of it. Like sometimes I'm like, man, that was really fruitful, but I don't necessarily want to do it the next day. Yeah, right. And so I don't know if that's the enemy like pushing me like, nah, that's weird. Well, I think it's our flesh. It's our flesh who identifies with a comfortable place. Yeah. And we're afraid like we're going to be humiliated. We're fear of death. The cool thing is if we'll just do what he says, amazing things start to happen. I want to tell a really quick practical story, a business story of this exact thing. So we have this business issue we were dealing with. I was strategy meeting most Fridays with my business partner and our CFO. And we were meeting, and we have a legitimate problem that we really need to act on. It's something that we've been working through a while through, but not specifically. And we were like, what are we going to do? And I said, guys, we're going to pray. And so we prayed James 1. It said, if anyone needs wisdom, ask, because God will get it generously. But when you ask, believe, because double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Shouldn't expect to receive anything. So I looked my partner and our CFO and I said, guys, we're going to pray this scripture, and we're going to believe that God is going to speak to us. And if we don't believe he's going to speak to us, then we're not going to pray. And we're like, okay. So we pray this prayer. All right, this is Friday. Friday night, I'm going to my Friday night Bible study, and I just feel like I got this electric download. I know exactly what, I knew what we need to do, right? So I call my partner, or I text my partner next morning. I says, I know it's Saturday. Can we get a couple hours? I went over to his house. We spent a couple hours on a whiteboard. Without getting into what it is, here's the most amazing thing. 3 days later, he's invited by a business friend to be a witness to a conversation between two partners and an investor. Okay. He's not the mediator. He's just asked to be a Christian brother who will be a witness to their business issue that they've got, this dispute they've got going on. And what they were disputing is the result of the exact thing that we were dealing with. Like what could happen if we didn't make a change strategically in our business. What are the chances that 3 days later that God gets him invited to see what could go wrong if we didn't address it? And it was exactly confirming this lightning bolt revelation that I had. God wants to participate in your business with you. And it's amazing when you just ask a question and he didn't speak to us that moment in the meeting. We just trusted, we'll give him room and see what he does.
I love that.
It's amazing.
Yeah. All right, we're going to jump into something a little more fun again.
Yeah.
I think that stuff's fun too.
Yeah.
Guys, don't give me a hard time. I think it's all fun. What is one of the worst business ideas that you tried? It could be like a business itself, or it could be some marketing thing.
I tried to start a business with a gentleman who was retired. Okay. And so I just figured, so this guy was a former CEO of a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
And here I was in my early 30s, and we were going to start some sort of consulting business, right? Without getting into all the specifics. And I'm like, this is great. This dude's former CFO of Fortune 500 company. He's got the knowledge. I've got the willingness to do. And here's what didn't work. In the end, he wanted to be more retired than he wanted to go back to forming this company. And here I was with no other income because we're launching this business together, and I needed him for it to work. And so we had to close it down because that's where he was at stage of life. So we weren't equally yoked. We were equally yoked faith-wise. We weren't equally yoked in our commitment and understanding of who was going to be doing what and bringing what to the table. And so that was the worst idea, is not really taking the time to really think through what that commitment level needed to look like and what the role responsibilities would be. And it left on me things that I really wasn't capable of doing by myself.
Yeah. So the moral is make sure you're evenly yoked, clear expectations. Yeah. And I'm sure he thought he wanted to do it too,
did.
Right?
He did. Yeah, he really did. I think he saw in me the excitement and the energy that maybe he didn't have and didn't need. But in the end, he still just wasn't able to commit. He played golf, a few times a week. He had his millions. He didn't really need to go back to work. How about you? You got a story?
Yeah. I was trying to think how to answer my own question. I've had a ton of bad ideas. A bunch of like joke business ideas, stuff like that. I would say the majority of my bad ideas aren't necessarily bad ideas. They're ideas that I'm not fully willing to take to fruition.
Yeah. Don't start something half-hearted, right? If you're not really committed, just don't.
I right before I left California, I started a putter company with a business partner. And it was
You're designing and manufacturing?
He's already a designer.
Okay.
And he has a company that's still going to this day. He's had for 15 years, maybe that long. But I was like, all right, work with a buddy.
Engineering.
With a product that is already proven.
Yep.
Use my marketing background, all these different things. And we'll do this on the side and approach this almost as like content creators about a product. And I just way overlooked what can be done as a side hustle. Yeah. And I think most of the things that I've done on the side have failed because I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I've put 100+ hours in. I've spent 5, 10, 15,000. Usually that's all I could ever afford without getting investment because I'm afraid to do that. And it almost always comes to a point where it's like the video production pays the bills. I don't see where this point is where it pays the bills and it's requiring too much of my focus.
Yeah.
And so I drop it. And so there's lots of those little ideas.
I mean, the focus and distractions are a real thing as an entrepreneur, you know, and knowing how to juggle that and manage that and wanting to start something, but having to be honest, like, do I have the capacity right now, you know, to do that? And if I don't, then could I surround myself with a team who does, right? That'd be the only way you really do it, to be honest about what level of commitment you can make.
Yeah. And I think that's the part in my career. I've only ever at most had 2 employees at once. And it's always been more in the like, how do I survive while caring for the people under me on my team?
Yeah.
Versus like, how do I take risks with the right people to build something bigger? Not just for the sake of having something big, but for accomplishing a bigger dream and vision. And that's been a hurdle and something that, you know, this season for me might include and it might not. Like, I have open hands with the Lord in it. But I've tried a bunch of things, including a skateboard company.
All right.
I think that was in 8th or 9th grade. That was my first business, where I bought blemished skateboard decks from a manufacturer and bought an airbrush thinking I should be able to airbrush, right? As long as I have it. Most of my stupid decisions are assuming that I can do things that I can't.
How hard can it be?
I have extreme confidence
That's good.
that leads me to many good things, but also leads to a lot of failure.
You need some people in your life who will burst your bubble before you, because I've had that, and that's been a blessing. And the times people burst your bubble, you're like, oh, you almost resent them. But then after a while, you're like, oh, thank God.
Yes.
You know, that was a dumb idea.
I'm not going to like you in the moment, but we're going to enjoy this later.
Yeah, I owe a real, thank you to someone who burst my bubble once. He saved me from a lot of heartache.
Yeah. So as we start to land this plane of this episode, there's a couple small things I want to do.
Let's do it.
I'd love, as much as I can when I have people on, share what's one book for business and or faith or both that you feel is a must read.
Yeah. I think it's The Working Genius, 6 Types of Working Genius by Patrick Lencioni. And I'm a huge fan of all Lencioni stuff. If you read Lencioni, if you haven't, quick reads, there's always a business fable and then a principle on the back. But here, The Working Genius has got a personality assessment that goes with it that we feel like is the best for business, and we use it in our business. And it's not about whether an introvert or extrovert. It's about what types of project work give you life and what suck the life out of you.
Yeah.
And so when just by knowing that, it changes your view of work and partnership and team members and everything. So add it to your list. What
about faith? Is there one that you're like, oh man, this one really challenged me? Or
did you ever read The Heavenly Man about Brother Yun? So Brother Yun was a leader in the house church movement in China in the 80s.
Okay.
And there's a biography about his life. Yeah. That was super challenging. There was a season of time I read like 3 books in a row about people living in persecuted areas. That was just, really good for my faith. That one, and there's another one follow-up to go with it would be I Dared to Call Him Father, and it was about a lady in Pakistan who was visited by Christ in her dreams. And, obviously to become a Christian in a Muslim nation, she was ostracized and had to leave her family and her country. But,
Okay, great. So read those. Yeah. I'll give a couple, and I'll probably add extras over time. Building a story brand.
Yes.
Really helped. That book wasn't even written when I started following Donald Miller and his story brand stuff. But from a marketing perspective, that's really shaped a lot of the way that I communicate. And I've been reading a bunch of faith books lately, so there's more that are tuning and shaping me. But the book by Francis Chan, You and Me Forever, was one of the first ones that really challenged me. It's technically a marriage book, but it's much more about your relationship with God first. and living a proactive faith, not just like standing by, but actually doing what Scripture says. And so those are a couple. Okay, so for those of you who are interested in this, who enjoyed it, please follow, share it with us. This is brand new. Like we were having a conversation earlier. With things like this, I don't know sometimes if this episode is literally for just one of you. You may be listening and it spoke exactly to your heart. And sometimes that's how God works, is he wants to just use, he called me and Blake to sit here today so that you may know him and know that you are loved. And this may be something where he wants many people as they're driving to work to feel more encouraged in their faith and in their business, and to bring that home to their families. And so follow along with this. Blake, you have a couple different avenues. Briefly tell me the two different directions, and we'll put links down in the description on how people can follow along.
Yeah, we have a podcast called Increase. Yeah, so you'll find that on YouTube, and there's a TikTok channel that goes along with that.
And that's Blake, all about the wilderness.
That's all about the wilderness. Blake .increase, that's on TikTok. And then also feature the real estate stuff that we're up to on YouTube and Instagram. So Blake Anderson Real Estate.
Perfect. So you can follow him there. One little shout out and plug for this is our brand new studio. I've spent the last couple months building this studio in the heart of downtown Raleigh. We're calling it Studio Refuge, and this will be rented out for podcasts, for compelling stories, for video production, for people locally. So I'm really excited to see what kind of stories come out of this place. And I also have another podcast, Persisting in Purpose. Blake will likely be on that at some point too, but it's all about understanding that God has purposes for us vocationally that don't have to be vocational ministry to make great impact on the kingdom. And so I just want to end by reading a Bible verse. Again, this is something I'd like to do regularly. It's one that I have on my work dashboard that I try to read daily, but because we're human, I overlook it far too often. And it's Romans 12:2, and I'll read it even though I could probably say it by memory. It says this: "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." So I think that's incredibly crucial for this stage of being an entrepreneur. We need to not be conform to the patterns of this world, but we need to constantly come back to his word, to pursue him in journaling and prayer, and allow the Lord to lead us. And then we can understand his will and truly live out your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So hopefully you guys were blessed by this conversation. I've been blessed. Thank you, Blake, for being on. And we'll see you in the next one.